Hello, hello, hello. My name is Justina, and you are listening to Meme Stream, a visual podcast hosted by yours truly. I apologize in advance because I literally sound like I'm swimming underwater. It is because I'm sick. I apologize. But today I'm going to be discussing what selective perception is and how it relates to the everyday listener and media user. Let me start off the podcast with an audio recording taken from the Radiolab's War of the Worlds podcast. We will be right back afterwards to discuss some initial thoughts after hearing the first few seconds of this clip.
Hey, I'm Jad Abumrad.
I'm Robert Krulwich.
This is Radiolab.
And today we're celebrating a multiple set of anniversaries because it was 80 years ago that Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater decided to allow Martians to invade the state of New Jersey.
Hold the phone. Did you just say Martians invaded New Jersey? Well, on the evening of October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater held a live interactive War of the Worlds reading, which premiered on the radio. Let's just say people took it out of context and didn't take highly to the broadcast. This episode of Radiolab, hosted by Jad Abumrad and Robert Krulwich, discusses why people reacted the way they did, as well as if the mass hysteria could happen again. Here I am, asking the exact same thing, but in terms of our media studies course. Broadcast media, as seen in the form of radio, allowed the same message to be transmitted simultaneously to masses of people. We can probably agree that because so many people are hearing one message, everyone is going to hear and perceive that message differently. Selective perception is the effect that people are going to perceive and understand certain messages based on what they want to hear. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Hearing a news broadcast about aliens seems super out of the ordinary, and humans aren't idiots who are going to fall for such a news reporting. Can they? Let's set the scene, shall we? The news broadcast occurred in 1938, around the same time a very important historical figure emerged.
Tschechoslowakei sollte endlich eine Wahl stattfinden. Es war nicht mehr zum Hinausschieben. Diese militärische Besetzung.
World War II was upon them, and every single radio station began covering what was happening overseas. So much so that these individuals who heard the broadcast had already been pre-exposed to oncoming threats such as the Nazis. They'd already heard so much about the German invasions. Maybe it wasn't so out of the ordinary to hear of an alien invasion. Some people didn't even believe that aliens were attacking, just Germans coming off the shores of Jersey. So, they basically took the Martian threat and tied it to a predetermined danger. After the broadcast premiered, a Princeton sociologist went out and interviewed individuals to see how they reacted to such a broadcast, and here was the report.
I knew it was some Germans trying to gas us all, but when the announcer kept on calling them people from Mars, I just thought he was ignorant.
This is what was also said about what people thought they saw.
Some listeners said they actually felt like they were choking. Others reported to police that they saw with their own eyes, as they looked at the Manhattan skyline, they saw a thin veil of smoke from the battle over the city. Some said they saw Martian machines high-stepping their way down the Palisades, splash, splash, splash. And many people, when they called operators or police, they didn't say, "Oh my God, we're being invaded by Martians." They said, "Oh my God, we're being invaded by Germans."
This goes to show that due to the time period when this broadcast premiered, individuals began believing the things they heard and interpreted the attacks to a Nazi ambush. They wanted to believe that World War II was actually upon them. The Fake News Fallacy by Adrian Chen relates selective perception to modern-day social media. The article begins with a discussion of the War of the Worlds radio broadcast. After the broadcast aired, newspapers would report headlines such as 30 men and women rushed to the West 123rd Street police station, and 2 people suffered from heart attacks. These things were said by the New York Times and the Washington Post, both of which are reliable newspaper sources. The panic would be the biggest story for weeks, Chen's article states. A. Brad Schwartz, author of Broadcast Hysteria, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds and the Art of Fake News, invalidates these news headings and states how there was no mass hysteria, only small pockets of concern that quickly burned out. However, why is it that individuals still perceive this event as resulting in mass panic? Well, think of this. If someone told you today, through the radio, that aliens were landing on Earth, only a few people would necessarily panic, considering there's no solid proof. However, due to the bizarre information and the slight hints of panic, the media could twist those facts in order to make it seem larger than it actually was. This leads individuals to believe that the event actually caused mass panic. A more relatable example is the Trump campaign or anything of Trump's recent actions as president. Throughout his race for office, many fake news stories and propaganda surfaced. Trump's supporters, as well as the people who don't support him, believed these false articles and attacked him and the media based on what they heard, no matter what it was. Even though the article header sounded outlandish, people still saw the information stated as truth. People wanted to believe certain things about our president, and therefore will interpret a news article to benefit their love or hatred of him. The fake news fallacy article describes fake news as a virus spreading among users who have been exposed to online misinformation. As the virus encompasses different parties, more and more people fall victim to its effects of mass manipulation. Selective perception as a result of the media becomes dangerous when individuals are more susceptible to interpret what they hear to benefit their points of view. People become driven not by facts and truth, but instead by opinions and preconceived ideas. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for listening to Meme Stream and joining me in discussing Radiolab's War of the Worlds podcast, The Fake News Fallacy by Adrian Chen, and their relationships to the interpretation of media messages.